Hello everybody, I'm the introverted astrologer. I do hope you're all well. I'm back again with you after a short break, and it's clear that all eyes are on the Jeffrey Epstein case. This simply will not rest. It continues to irk the public's sense of justice, of integrity. I've spotted something very interesting, and we're going to embark on a slithery, slippery journey in pursuit of the truth and potentially of exposure. I think the best place to start is right back with the original source. And so here we have the birth chart of Jeffrey Epstein. I'm working with quite a commonly used time of 3:15 in the morning. But I must point out that this is categorised as DD. In other words, it's dirty data, and so we may well be going on hearsay. The source is not necessarily reliable. Let's keep that in mind when we consider his angles. Now, I don't want to analyse his full chart here, but I really want us to hone in on Neptune, which is here in Libra and conjunct with that Saturn. We have this T-square going on involving Uranus, but also Mercury and the Sun too. Now, I'm very interested in this because what we'll be honing in on today is confusion, a lack of clarity, downright dishonesty even. This configuration is in place regardless of what time of day Epstein was born, and woven into all this Neptune confusion and dissolving is a natal aspect which he shares with Donald Trump. Both Epstein's and Trump's natal Mercuries are in difficult aspect with Neptune, and we know that this is an aspect which does not bode well for transparency, for coherency at times, for rigid honesty. Now, if we were looking at the positive expression of this aspect, we could be considering gifts such as a strong imagination, artistic skills, creativity. We could have great imagination and uncanny intuition. But there's no denying that the lower expression of this same combination can be confused, nebulous, prone to fantasy, and quite simply a downright liar, a master of deception. Of course, there are many other interplays in Epstein's chart pointing towards the same thing, a great capacity for fantasy, for confusion. But given these two men share some overlap in their planetary aspects and their natal challenges, it would be interesting to see the composite chart between them. How will their Neptune and Mercury play out in that? My jaw dropped at the strength of this composite chart, because here we have this incredibly strong opposition involving Neptune, Mercury, the Sun, the node. We need to remember that we're looking at a chart which is based on the midpoints between the two men's respective planets. So we're viewing the relationship as a separate entity from them both, as though it had a life and a trajectory of its own. So it's uncanny that this relationship is showing up in this way. If that widely used birth time for Epstein is correct, this whole configuration is so much stronger for falling across the ascendant-descendant axis. It is stunning in what it's telling us, and you can see that the Sun is also involved. So at the root of this relationship, there would likely be this total lack of realism. Neither of them may have a firm grasp on the reality of their relationship, and so they may not have realistic expectations. This would then lead to repeated disappointments. And of course there is also that terrifically strong potential for dishonesty. So confusions, setbacks would be virtually guaranteed, even between two people who were very well-meaning and had high levels of personal integrity. That potential for things to get muddled, distorted, misinterpreted is there. So you can imagine how much more difficult it would be if either or both parties did not have strong personal integrity. Now, of course, we know that Trump has publicly stated that Epstein was poaching his staff, and that is why their relationship ended. There's another widely available explanation online which discusses a property deal where one went behind the other's back. but I can only tell you with a composite like this, the setbacks are very strong. The synastry between their planets also flagged up this difficulty with Neptune and personal planets. And so I had a quick look round to see if there were any asteroids that would consolidate this story. There's a very interesting asteroid called Lie, and it is often brought in where there is suspicion of an untruth or a cover-up. And so we're going to pull this little asteroid in and consider this chart further. Now, incredibly, you can see here how closely interwoven the asteroid Lie is with the Mercury, the Neptune. It's incredible. Some astrologers work very closely with asteroids and keep track too of how they play off against each other. And I'm going to put an article in the comments which contains the work of an astrologer called Alex Miller, and he's had a very close look at Lie and has also incorporated it into some analyses of President Clinton around the time of the Lewinsky saga. I think you'll agree that Lie really is backing up the main story that we can clearly see is being played out by our usual planets. Incidentally, I would always use asteroids to back up a theme that is already being hinted at by the major players. Now, there is some suspicion that there is a cover-up, and that for some reason Donald Trump himself may be part of it too. I mentioned earlier that there were a couple of Neptune issues going on in America's other charts, and that includes Trump's charts too. And so here I've brought in his solar return for this year, a 12-month period which starts around his June birthday and spans through until June of 2026. This is the standalone solar return, and we have the Sun at the exact degree and minute it was when Trump was born. I've looked at this return previously, and you can see straight away that the indications are so strong that this is a year when he is very much in the public eye. The Sun is placed high up on the midheaven, very tightly so. And so the midheaven is telling us about our public role, our career, our public visibility, what the world is seeing. And Trump is beaming out on the world stage. He has great public visibility this year. And incidentally, we can also pick up that wider Neptune square in the solar return between Neptune and Mercury, echoing what is already there in his birth chart anyway. But I'm sure you can see how tightly the asteroid Lie is caught up for him in this 12 months. It's on an angle because it is on the IC of this chart. And moreover, the Sun and Lie are in the degree of the node. The North Node is here at 22 odd degrees. And so it squares out to the Sun and Lie very tightly. And so we can say that they are on the bendings of the node, because it is squaring them so tightly. We know that the IC in a chart is telling us about a person's foundations or heritage, and it may well also say something about where they are coming from and can describe what makes them secure. Now, I've placed Trump's natal planets around the edge of this chart. They are the red glyphs, and what you can see is that his natal moon is also conjunct with the asteroid Lie and with the IC of this chart. So there's no question that the asteroid Lie is a prominent part of Trump's year. Now, something that had perplexed me almost a year ago now, when I looked at Trump's converse solar return, which you have here in the centre, was the fact that Neptune was on the midheaven. This converse solar return still places the Sun at the exact degree and minute it was when Trump was born, but it moves backwards in time. Normally we see time as moving forward in a consecutive manner. However, in the spiritual realms, there is no time, and everything happens all at once. So we know that time can be manipulated, and we can equally step back 79 years before Trump was born to find out a bit more about his current year. He turned 79 on his recent birthday, of course, and so his return for 1867 is placing this Neptune on the midheaven. This made no sense to me last year, but I'm considering it in a different light now. Neptune can represent illusion, sacrifice, loss, deception, confusion. Placed on the midheaven in this way, it's showing us that this is what Trump will be projecting out to the world. Once again, we do have the wider square between Neptune and Mercury, that aspect which so often indicates an ability to tell tall stories. So we have that natal potential being highlighted again, but Uranus is very near this Mercury, both in the 12th house of hidden things. And could there be some startling or shocking realizations for Trump here? Sometimes what is hidden in the 12th house can be a secret, and the pair Uranus and Jupiter can bring sudden, stunning clarity or truth to a situation. And yet again, that little asteroid Lie is very close on the ascendant, so it's tightly configured with this chart because the ascendant is so personal and so strong. We can't lose sight of the story that the main planetary players are telling us, and we can certainly pick up conflict this year. This conflict would be something playing out in Trump's relationships with people around him, and because it connects so tightly with his own natal planets and his angles, I would personally be on alert for some fallout with other people. It is also quite a strong emphasis on the feminine archetype, and I'm not certain whether a female could be involved in this. Now, where is Trump at in terms of the other measurements that are going on in his life? His progressions, his transits. His natal chart is in the centre. The green glyphs around the outer edge show us where his progressed planets are for today's date, and the blue glyphs are showing us the solar arc measurements. Now we do have an important solar arc going on, and this involves Neptune. Neptune is around 21 degrees and 37 of Sagittarius, so we know it has likely connected with his natal moon over the last year. Solar arcs typically can manifest at any point over a given year, so the accompanying life event likely took place in the 12 months leading up to and including June of 2025. This solar arc Neptune is therefore also looming closer to his Sun, and it will actually be contacting the Sun-Moon midpoint. We will see time and time again how Neptune can describe a range of events falling between spiritual awareness, sensitivity, imagination, confusion, and sometimes this arc to the sun can also be describing downright deception and potentially illegality. So we have a spectrum of possibilities, but this is a strong contact. Now, Trump's progressed Mercury is already in the same degree as his Mars, and it's inching forwards all the time. It's currently just 22 minutes away from perfection, and as we often see with progressions, there's a more likely corridor when they may express themselves as they approach exactitude and pass over an important point. Now, as Mercury pulls closer and closer to this Mars, we might be anticipating a sudden speeding up, a great infusion of energy into Trump's communications, an escalation of meetings, interchange, exchange of information. There could be more local travel. But Mars also tells us something about our ability to assert ourselves or to express our anger. Trump's natal Mars is very fiery, very strong, and this could be a time when Trump is making very clear his reactions to something, the decisions or plan of action he will make around a certain event. The likely time corridor for this one is probably before this year is out. We also know that transiting Uranus has begun to square his ascendant, and this is something that was likely first exact around June time. Because of the speedy and unpredictable nature of Uranus transits, we know that this brings change. There can be rapid and sometimes surprising changes in our relationships around us. There may be new, surprising and even upsetting people appearing in our lives, and sometimes they are only meant to play a passing role. They won't be around once the transit has passed. There can be this lightning fast and startling quality with Uranus transits, and it may be that June of this year first introduced those initial changes or surprises for Trump to deal with. Now, because we're talking about a president, it would be remiss of us not to see if this shows up in the mundane charts for the United States. Now, the chart I'm working with includes the Sibley chart for the United States, the independence chart. There are many to choose from, but I do prefer this one. And what you can see in this central chart is the Aries ingress for United States the minute that the Sun entered the sign of Aries back in March of 2025. The Sibley chart positions are placed around the outer edge in the red glyphs. Now, we have an old traditional rule about casting the ingresses. This traditional rule says that when you cast the Aries ingress, you have a look at the sign on the ascendant. If it's a fixed sign, then that ingress holds true for the rest of the year until the Aries ingress in 2026. Now, we do indeed have that fixed sign on the ascendant because it's Aquarius, and so this chart is telling us something about the unfolding of events in the United States during this period. We would also look at these positions very closely in terms of the relationships that they form with the natal points, and of course we would also consider new moons and eclipses too. One of the main players, Neptune, is already alerting me to some issues. I'll elaborate on those very shortly. But in this chart I'd wanted to hone in on the little asteroid Lie and see if there were any interesting interconnections. So I'll start by showing you America's natal placement of Lie, so you can see how Mars is illuminating it, is lighting it up with a big injection of energy and pulling it into national consciousness. And still working with these tighter orbs, we can see that the natal American Mars is opposing the ingress Lie. So we have this double exchange, a double whammy between Lie and Mars. Mars, which is bringing in so much energy, potentially conflict. Do we have anything interesting going on in the independence chart itself? Well, yes, of course we do. I'm sure most of us are aware that transiting Neptune and Saturn, as they are circling the heavens at present, are in a very near conjunction, and that conjunction is falling on the IC of the Sibley chart. So roots, security, the homeland, and to a certain extent the people of the country and democracy itself, these are all being highlighted by this extremely rare conjunction which takes place only once every few decades. If we remember that Saturn on a national level can be speaking of authority, the administration of the law, and that Neptune can be working to undermine or erode this, then this is significant. We also know that America's chart will be hit by an eclipse. This is a solar eclipse, which falls somewhere around the 21st of September Universal Time. It is in the 29th degree of Virgo, and so as you can see, there is this close connection to the midheaven of the United States, that very public place, speaking of authority and rulership of the important people who are in charge, and again that great international visibility, because eclipses have a reputation for bringing unfortunate events when they affect the charts of countries. I think this will be very interesting, and if we weren't already bowled over by quite how much coincidence and synchronicities we're seeing, this is the presidential inauguration chart the time when Donald Trump was sworn into office. So we're looking at a date of the 20th of January earlier this year. And I've placed the independence chart planets around the outer edge. Now, we did look at this very interesting chart in a separate video. And one of the things that we'd picked up was this interesting T-square involving the Moon, Mercury and Chiron. I wasn't sure how this would play out, and there were some concerns about American females generally too. But what we can now pick up is that the asteroid Lie in America's chart is exactly square with this Moon. It opposes Mercury. Chiron is tightly involved too. So we have this sort of a grand cross, if you like, in the cardinal signs. Cardinal energy is very strong. Where there is such friction and conflict generated, the action is initiatory and outward. Might there be exposure, this coming to light of a shame, potentially an untruth or a dishonesty regarding women, one which is hauled out of the 12th house through this conflict so that it can be better brought to public awareness. The synchronicities continue. I mean, this inauguration chart is highlighting a chunk of Pisces wherein Epstein's natal Mars-Venus conjunction falls. And we can find Trump's Saturn-Venus conjunction down here on the IC together with the inauguration Mars. Can we pick up any other signs that might tell us a bit more about timing? Now, because Epstein was born in January, we can cast a solar return which will span from the January that's behind us through to January of 2026. So there's just a few months left of the solar return period. What I've done is I've put Epstein's chart in the centre, and you have that passionate Mars-Venus conjunction down here in Pisces. His natal asteroid Lie is close by, and I've put the solar return positions for this year around the outer edge. And this is most interesting because the solar return Lie is closely caught up with the ascendant and Jeffrey's own placement of Lie and the Mars-Venus, which is of so much interest to us. They are hauled out onto the midheaven of the solar return, that very prominent public place, given we only have a few months left of this year, 2025. The fact that the United States will soon be having an eclipse on its midheaven, is this something which is going to bring further revelations for us before the year's out? I think it's possible. I can't tell you 100% because I am, after all, working with dirty data, and moreover, astrology can give general forecasts, but actual concrete predictions regarding specific events are much more difficult. I've probably made you dizzy with the amount of slides that you've looked at, and I won't add any more, but I have had a look at Epstein's background, lunar returns too, over the next few months, and they too are showing this same emphasis of his personal placements on the angles. They are quite stunning. I personally suspect that the time is ripe for more important details to emerge regarding the whole Epstein case. And as a matter of fact, I've not spoken much about the transits of this little asteroid. Is it impacting anybody that we know? Would you believe it is connecting with Trump's Sun-Moon opposition? It initially conjuncted his Moon in March of this year. Lie then carried on moving direct until it reached 0 degrees of Capricorn, and then it turned retrograde. And so it reversed back over Trump's Sun-Moon opposition in June. Lie is direct again, and so it's going to oppose Trump's Uranus later this month, and it will contact the Sun-Moon opposition in his chart this September. I will be watching what he says very carefully. I hope you enjoyed that. Now, some of you may well be trying to locate this little asteroid in your own birth charts. Can I just tell you not to be too alarmed if it configures very closely with a personal planet or an angle. The asteroid Lie can also be highlighting areas in our life where we may have to keep dealing with the dishonesty or lack of transparency from other people. Moreover, it can also say something about whether you have fine mathematical ability. So whilst some healthy self-examination never goes amiss, don't get too worried. Now I'm going to be looking at my work for the next video, which will be with you very soon, within the next fortnight. I'm going to be looking more closely at the UK, because in the last couple of months the landscape has changed so dramatically. We have a new political party, a major player, and Labour's popularity has plummeted. I suspect we're entering a new era now where the old Conservative and Labour parties are gradually being extinguished. So we'll take an impartial look at Britain's political landscape. That will be with you very soon, but until then, do take very good care of yourselves, and God bless you and your families.